Today, I'm going to cover setting up a UniFi Ubiquiti network on my home and on my property. Now, I've watched a lot of videos here on YouTube about Ubiquiti, but most of them are people that are like deep in this ecosystem. So I thought it'd be helpful if I gave an entry-level perspective. Until just a couple weeks ago, I had really only ever heard of Ubiquiti, but never actually used it or set it up. And you know, home internet seems simple on the surface, right? All you need is some sort of modem type device for connecting to your ISP, a router for Wi-Fi, and potentially a wired network for the wired stuff that's in your house. Well, if that's you, I envy your data needs. For me, and I'm sure for a lot of you, it's not that simple. Wi-Fi dead zones, separate buildings, a mix of wired and wireless devices, it always results in a much more complicated setup. And I'll get more into the particulars of my setup throughout this video, but let's just go ahead and jump into all of this and talk about Ubiquiti and their UniFi system. Ubiquiti seems to have hardware for literally any use case. At the high end, you can have rack-mounted enterprise network gear that can provide data for entire office buildings, stadiums, outdoor events, you name it. At the low end, they have simple mesh networks that could easily replace any basic home internet setup. And for me, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure I'd recommend Ubiquiti for someone that needs just basic Wi-Fi in a 2-story house. In that case, it's easy enough to get a cheap wireless router and call it a day. But if you need more than that, I think this is where Ubiquiti and their UniFi system shines. So I can't stress this enough. If you're going to take the plunge, take some time to evaluate your property and figure out exactly what you need. I found that it's way easier to figure out what you need and then find the hardware that matches your needs, instead of the other way around, where you start by looking at all this hardware and then try to match it to your property. The easiest way to put this is just assume that whatever you need based on your evaluation, Ubiquiti is going to have it, because honestly, they probably do. So here's a quick summary that I recorded earlier where I gathered all of my old network equipment. Now, none of these things individually are absolutely terrible. As a matter of fact, I think if you bought them all individually, they would work just fine. I even have another video where I went through my old setup. The problem is, when you start putting them all together, they become a problem for, 1, powering them, 2, understanding if something goes wrong, like where it's gone wrong, and 3, it's just a whole mix of different brand names and things, and honestly, I could do better. So let me just run through this real quick. I will post a link to the video where I went through the old setup. And I'll start with the thing I recommended in that old setup, and that is this. I used these for beaming internet from my house to my barn. And again, in that video, I recommended these. I still recommend these. This is the reason that I ended up replacing everything, but it's not because they were performing poorly. Literally, there was a lightning strike. And the lightning strike blew out one of these, and the whole thing stopped working. In my house, I had this mesh network here, these Netgear devices, 3 of them. One of them was connected to the cable modem, and the other 2 were just kind of around the house. Then I had a wire running down to my basement, and then from in the basement through this Netgear switch, and then to this PoE injector, which powered one of these. The other one was in the barn. And then also in the barn, I had this router, because these things on their own are not access points. They just send the internet signal between the 2 of them, like a bridge. So you have to connect something to this to then get internet. So I had another router in the barn acting as an access point that would put Wi-Fi out to the barn. It was a mess. And the other thing I really didn't like about all this is it's all the power. Like, I had to have power cords for each one of these things. And so now I'm going to get into the new setup, and I'll show you why the new setup is so much better. So as you can see, too many parts, too many power cords, too difficult to troubleshoot, and now failing hardware. This was honestly the perfect opportunity to rip it all out and do it right. So there was a lightning strike on my property, as I mentioned, and I wasn't here when it happened, but my wife was. By the best I could tell, she was about 50 feet away from the lightning strike when it happened, which is kind of terrifying. It was just outside my barn where we keep our horses. At the time, it didn't seem like there was any damage, but later that night she realized that the internet connection in the barn that comes from the house was down. And by the way, I'm going to make a whole video about my Wi-Fi connected smart barn. So if you're interested in that, get subscribed. Long story short, when I got home, I had to fix this network problem. And I really didn't even know where the failure was, to be honest with you. It could have been the access point in the barn, it could have been the wireless bridge, it could have been something completely unrelated. After several hours, and I'm not kidding, of plugging and unplugging and testing various parts of the network, eliminating all the variables, I determined that one of the wireless bridge transmitters was fried. So after all that troubleshooting and then some planning on what I was going to replace it with, here's what I ended up getting. Let's start out with the gateway. I went with the UniFi Cloud Gateway Ultra. This is much more powerful than the Express, and I'll talk about that in a little bit if I haven't already. Essentially, this is a router. It is not wireless. I've already installed it. The box is empty, but it has one WAN port, 4 LAN ports on the back, and essentially just does all of the routing and switching if necessary. Now, I'm not actually using all 4 LAN ports on the back. I'm only using one because one runs through this PoE injector and then into this PoE switch. So one goes into the switch, and then you get 4 powered Ethernet ports that go out, and then that goes to the access points. So I have 5 total access points here. 3 of them will be powered. 2 of them downstairs and 1 of them upstairs. And the reason only 3 of them are powered is because that's the only 3 places where I have Ethernet running and I could actually plug them in. The other 2, one of them is going to go here in this office. It's actually right there. There is no Ethernet here, and there's a rule in my house about not drilling any more holes. So this one is going to mesh with the one that's further out that way. And these are called UniFi AC Mesh because if they don't have Ethernet plugged into them that's connected to the network, they will mesh with whatever they find. All of this Ubiquiti stuff is totally like 100% compatible with each other. You just plug it in, it's magic. I'll go over that in a little bit. And then the last one is going to go out in the barn, and again, it's not hooked up to Ethernet. It is going to be powered over the PoE injector that's out there, and this one will mesh with one of the downstairs access points. So that's the whole setup. It's all UniFi. It all works great through the app, and it all just kind of works, which is just so much better, and not nearly as many power cords. Now, obviously, this is probably not exactly what you need for your setup, but the important takeaway here is you need to determine your needs, as well as ensuring you get the required equipment to activate everything. And when I say required equipment, what I mean is a UniFi gateway and a UniFi network controller. The gateway is a fancy name for a router, and the network controller hosts the software that makes all this magic happen. I know that sounds like a lot just to get started, but the good news is that what sounds like 2 devices is actually just one with both features built in. For my setup, I went with the UniFi Cloud Gateway Ultra, and it contains the gateway and the controller all in one unit. This unit is small, so it doesn't require a whole rack mount setup like you see in office buildings or things. It doesn't act as a Wi-Fi access point, but as you saw, I have plenty of those. But it does have enough power to control many other UniFi network devices. This gateway is essentially the brains of the operation. And if you want to have a full-blown Ubiquiti UniFi system, you have to have one. It does the routing, as well as host the UniFi web console that allows you to control the entire ecosystem through your web browser or through the UniFi app. And I'll talk more about the software later because it's one of the main features that separates Ubiquiti from your normal residential Wi-Fi router. So after you make a plan and buy the necessary hardware, setting up a Ubiquiti UniFi network is an absolute dream. Honestly, this process makes every other network system out there look like complete garbage. Any amount of extra money spent on this system is immediately justified when you do the initial setup. And honestly, it's this simple. First, just plug everything in and wire it the way you want it wired. Next, you get the app. And literally, there are no instructions in the box with the UniFi stuff except for a QR code that takes you to the App Store to download the UniFi app. It has a very kind of Apple-esque feel, except for Ubiquiti actually delivers on making it simple where Apple sometimes doesn't. After installing the app, it'll automatically detect your new network and walk you through setting up a username and password. After that, all your UniFi equipment will just be there. And now you can hit adopt on each of the devices that are not the gateway, wait a few minutes, and after that, you can set up your Wi-Fi network name and password. And honestly, everything else after that is just personal preference. So as far as setup goes, that's all there is to it. I've mentioned a few times at this point that planning is important. Well, honestly, I should take my own advice because the gateway I chose was not my first choice. Initially, I went with the UniFi Express. UniFi Express seems like a great entry-level gateway. It has a Wi-Fi access point built into it, and it can control up to 4 additional UniFi devices that are connected to it. And that's the part that I missed. You see, the Express is truly entry level. It's really designed to compete with other residential mesh networks that allow you to have 3 or 4 meshed routers kind of plugged in around your house that'll extend your network and cover your dead zones. Beyond that, it just doesn't have enough compute power to do much else. So, when I attempted to connect the Express with a PoE switch and 5 access points, I got an error saying I had reached my limit of UniFi devices. Additionally, even with only 4 UniFi devices connected, the device was clearly struggling with loading the UniFi console, and it was like hot to the touch. Obviously, at this point, I realized I was pushing the device too far and I needed to get something better. To my surprise, I went on the Ubiquiti website and found that the Cloud Gateway Ultra was the same price, allowed for any number of connected devices, and had much more beefy CPU. The only trade-off was the lack of Wi-Fi access point built in. And honestly, that's fine with me. This device will live in my basement where Wi-Fi isn't needed anyway. So I returned the Express, got the Gateway Ultra, and all was right in the world. Okay, so a new router, a new switch, and 5 wireless access points. How well do they work? Honestly, excellent. And I'm really, really happy with it. I did some speed tests and some signal strength tests throughout my house and my yard. It's not perfect everywhere, but I think that'd be asking a lot. In my house, the connectivity and the handoff between the access points is great. And I don't have any dead spots, and the speeds are great to the router and to my ISP. In the yard, I have connectivity in the highest traffic areas. The connected devices outside, like my car, a couple cameras, and the Tesla charger, have no issues with connecting to the Wi-Fi, which honestly is something I didn't have before. I can also maintain a Wi-Fi connection walking from my house to my barn. Finally, in the barn, everything works as expected. Here's the speed test from the barn, but I'm not going to go too much into the detail here since that's the next video. I don't think it's possible for me to say too many positive things about the UniFi app and the web console. Throughout this video, I've been showing clips of the console because it helps to illustrate some of the points I'm making, but also because I'm totally addicted to this app. Literally everything you could ever want to know about your network is available within the software, and it's actually like a modern UI. Unlike the, those clunky experiences you get when you buy like a home router at a big box store or something. I'm positive at this point that I haven't even scratched the surface of this UI. But honestly, the most important feature of this whole thing is being able to troubleshoot. Now, I've had this set up for like a week and nothing's gone wrong. So it's not like I can really show you, but I think it's pretty obvious. Having the whole network visualized means that when something does go wrong, it'll be super easy to open the app and see exactly what's wrong. I don't know if I said this already, but in case you don't know, this video is not sponsored in any way. I just really like it and highly recommend this UniFi setup if you can afford the higher cost of it. But there's a few things to look out for. For the most part, buying the hardware for a network setup like this is simple. You get a gateway, you get the wired hardware that you need, and you get the access points that you need for Wi-Fi. Mostly everything is powered over an Ethernet port. So aside from the gateway that has its own dedicated power cord, you're going to need some power over Ethernet injectors. That's where I ran into a small issue. My plan was to power all of the wireless access points in my house through the UniFi Flex switch. This will allow me to just run an Ethernet cable from the switch to all the access points, and power would be provided over the Ethernet cable, instead of having to use PoE injectors at each of the access points. And since all the access points came with PoE injectors, I assumed that the switch did as well, but it didn't. Unfortunately, the PoE injectors that came with the access point didn't provide enough juice to power the switch and all of the access points connected to it. So I had to buy what they call a PoE++ injector. It was only $29, so it's not like it was breaking the bank, but honestly, I had no idea that it didn't just come with the switch. It's kind of weird that it didn't, because on its own, the switch doesn't work without being powered over an Ethernet cable. Essentially, I got a switch that wouldn't work at all unless I bought something else. So I got the PoE++ injector and connected everything to the switch. The outcome was exactly what I wanted, just kind of an annoying hiccup. My advice is to check the website and read all the details so you know what you're getting. I could have avoided the delay just by reading the details. All right, so here's the breakdown of cost if you're interested. Number one is the UniFi Cloud Gateway Ultra. And like I mentioned before, this is the gateway and the network controller, and it was $129. Two was the UniFi Flex PoE 5-port switch. That was $99. Number three were the UniFi AC mesh access points. Those were $99 a piece, and I got 5 of them. And number four was the PoE++ injector, which was $29. So that's a grand total of $752. Now, that seems expensive. I'll admit that. Here's the breakdown for the old equipment. One, a Netgear AC mesh 3-pack. So this was $169 as I found it on Amazon today. I honestly have no idea what I paid for it before. It was more than that, I'm sure. Two was just a basic Netgear 5-port unmanaged switch. That was $17. Three was the wireless bridge that connects the barn to the house. That was $119. And four was another Netgear router, which just acted as an access point in the barn, and that was $84. So all the old equipment came to a total of $389. So there's a difference of $363 here. You tell me in the comments, is it worth $363 more to have this system? With the ease of troubleshooting, the simple setup, and the expandability, plus it extends the Wi-Fi network throughout my yard, and I have a managed switch for any future needs that I have. I'm really interested to see what you think. All right, everybody, I think that's about it for today. Thanks for stopping by and watching all the way to the end. I know this was a long one. If you liked the video, get subscribed, hit the thumbs up, all those things that YouTube really wants you to do. And until next time, I hope I helped you learn faster.